and welcome to the October meeting of the Madison DX Club. Tonight, we're really happy to have Lance, W7GJ, with us again to talk about a recent 6-meter EME DXpedition. And I hope some of our participants here on the program had a chance to work you. And Lance, your presentations are better than Rick Steves' programs. So you don't talk a whole lot about all the great food you eat at these places, but you do talk about a lot of other things, which makes it very, very interesting to all of us. So Lance, please take it away.
Well, thank you very much, Kevin. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay. Well, unlike many of the HFD expeditions, which you were talking about in your business meeting, these 6-meter EMED expeditions are really on a shoestring, and they none of these VHFD expeditions are funded by any DX associations or anything, so they have to be done on a real budget. But I've been doing them for some years now, and the one last August 2025 to Temotu province was my 20th 6-meter EMED expedition. And these are, I try to pick places that are quite rare on 6 meters. And like my trip last fall to Tristan da Cunha, nobody from North America had ever worked that DXCC on 6 meters before. So that's why I picked, one of the reasons why I picked Temotu province for the August DXpedition. So I decided to go to Pigeon Island, which is pictured here. Can you see did the slide come up okay showing Pigeon Island?
It did.
Okay. Well, that's it. It's 6 acres. There is someone who lives on Pigeon Island with his family, and his name is Ben. And I learned about him and got his contact information from the HFD expedition, which went to Pigeon Island in 2024. And they had left a 6-kilowatt generator there, which was brand new at the time. And they ran into all kinds of problems with the airlines and the shipping companies trying to ship all their HF equipment and everything over there. But I always take all my equipment with me. So the fact that there was a 6-kilowatt generator already there on the island was a big selling point for me. So I'll just talk a little bit about where Pigeon Island is and what I hoped to do and getting there and how I got set up. I'll talk a little bit about the operation, but mostly it's a travel log. There's not a whole lot to talk about food, but Ben did offer to feed me a meal a day, and I took him up on that. Originally, he had quoted me breakfast, lunch, and dinner, but I explained to him that my schedule wouldn't allow that. But I did wind up making time for a meal a day, which was, and I took a suitcase full of protein bars, and between the two of those, it kept me alive for the period I was on the island. So as I explained before, H40 was never worked before on 6 meters from North America, and it was very rare in Europe too. So it was a good destination to go to. I knew that there would be the possibility of 24-hour power. Obviously, it was fairly secure. Not a lot of cars driving by or buses, and not a whole lot of traffic in terms of people. So it was a good, secure location. And the nice thing for me was that the Solomon Islands' official language is English. Of course, they recognize lots of dialects and so on there, but the licensing bureau speaks English, and so it was challenging but possible to get a license from there. I know several HFD expeditions that finally gave up because it takes months to coordinate things with them. And there was a Japanese team that was going to go there for 6-meter EME from H40 this fall, and they gave up after several months of trying. I think because they didn't speak such good English, and it was a little harder for them to keep calling on the telephone and sending emails and so on to get a license. But anyway, those were some of the positive things. Part of the negative was how long it takes to get a license, and it takes a long time to get there from Montana. Of course, it takes a long time to get anywhere from Montana, so that is not unique. One of the challenges also in terms of 6 meters was it's in a tropical TEP zone location, and during the daytime, high total electron content regions move over the island, causing all kinds of problems for low VHF, like 6 meters. And one of the things that I thought was a really big challenge in talking with the nurse at the county health department where I go to get shots every year, she said, well, there are dengue mosquitoes during the day and malaria mosquitoes there at night, and you can take Malarone for the mosquitoes at night for malaria, but the dengue ones, you take your chances. And if you've ever had dengue fever before, your body will try to react to it. However, there are 4 strains of dengue fever, and the people that die from it had it once before, and they get a different strain, and their body basically kills them trying to react to the first strain. So on that note, I thought, well, I'll go during the driest time of the year and take my chances. So anyway, I was pretty on edge about that, but as it turned out, it was fine. I only saw 1 mosquito and I killed it. So the Solomon Islands are shown on this map over here. They're northeast of Australia, east of New Guinea, northwest of Vanuatu, where Bob just was, and almost due west of Fiji. And these are the reef islands which make up Temotu province. And the reason that it counts as a separate country is it's closer to Vanuatu than the rest of the Solomon Islands. So here was my planned DXpedition schedule. The first week was key. I was going to be there for 3 weeks because, the way things have been with the sun and the eruptions and the geomagnetic activity, you always want to try to hedge your bets and be there for days that are, that there are some days that are going to be bad for moon bounce, but try to allow for enough good days that things will work. And the first week was the optimum week for operating EME at night. And that's what I try to do when I'm down in the TEP zone, because like I said, the sky is, and the ionosphere is clear at night, and the signals can go right up to the moon and back without any trouble. It's during the daytime when things really become very unpredictable. So you can see from my schedule, and I post this months in advance so everybody can look at it who's interested in contacting me, and they can arrange their schedules and their vacation time or whatever. Here I depart Missoula on the 3rd of August, and my plan was to arrive in Honiara, the capital of the Solomon Islands, on the 7th, so I could, the 6th, so I could leave the Honiara on the 7th on the weekly flight that goes to Temotu province. So all in all, it would be like 4 days to get there. So these are some photos of how I packed up for the trip. Everything was packed in Ziploc bags to protect them against rain or being dropped in the ocean. I knew that there was some boats involved here, so I wanted to try to protect everything. And I left Missoula. Here on the left, you can see all the gear ready to leave. Here it is. Here's the ticket once I arrived in Los Angeles and reticketed myself. Going to Sydney, and then on to Brisbane, overnight in Brisbane, then on to Honiara in the Solomon Islands. So at every step along the way, I celebrated when all the bags arrived. I did a little happy dance. Sometimes it took a little while to try to figure out which terminal the bags had been sent to, but I got them all in each place, and it was very successful that way. When I got to Sydney from Los Angeles, I had never been to Sydney before, so I went downstairs into the airport and took the train to downtown Sydney so I could see what it was like, and it was very impressive. There's the Opera House. This is taken from the old town in Sydney. The skyscrapers were going up in between skyscrapers. I mean, it was very impressive, a booming city. And I had lunch here in the downtown by these old 1800s buildings. That's the view of some of these really strange-looking architectural marvels. And then an old building from the 1800s in the foreground. That was the lunch. Yum. And then, got an email from Solomon Airlines, and they delayed their flight from Thursday, the 7th, until Sunday, the 10th. And I thought, well, I'm just going to continue on with the schedule and planning on being there anyway. So I overnighted in Brisbane, on leaving Brisbane, arriving in Honiara, in the Solomon Islands, and welcome to the Solomon Islands. I was hoping that it wouldn't be quite that scary on Pigeon Island. And I stayed at the King Solomon Hotel, which was recommended to me by the DXpedition. I took a taxi to the King Solomon Hotel, and all of their rooms are built on different levels up the side of a hillside. So the only way to get there with your luggage is to take their elevator. And this was an example of the elevator at the King Solomon Hotel.
Hi.
So I took all my gear up to the 4th level, and then I got another email. Solomon Airlines decided they are going to go in the morning. So I set my alarm for 5 o'clock and made arrangements for the taxi and back out to the airport at 6 o'clock for the weekly flight right on schedule to Temotu province. And I checked all my bags. I had four pieces to check here. This was the antenna and mast up here, and then the other bags are filled with coax and power supplies, and the amplifier was in my carry-on luggage. And then at 8 o'clock, the flight guy comes out to me in the waiting room, and he says, "Well, we're going to keep your luggage here, but we're going to postpone until Sunday." Okay, so I said, I'll go back to the hotel. So I go back to the King Solomon Hotel. They still had my room available. And I thought, well, the day is early here on Thursday, so what will I do? I think I'm going to go out and buy a toothbrush, and when I do that, I may stop by and visit the licensing authority and actually meet the people that I've been talking to for months to get a license. So I stopped by, and of course, Aaron Hopa, the fellow I had been speaking with, was at lunch. So I said, well, I might as well do that too. So I had lunch downtown next to his office, and then went back to the hotel. And he had heard that I'd stopped by, and since we were pen pal friends, he by then he decided he was sorry he missed me, and he came to the hotel that evening and bought me a beer. So I bought him one in return, and explained to him what was so unique about Temotu province, about H40, that it counted as a separate country. It was different than the Solomon Islands. And I allowed as how the Solomon Islands were also rare, but, I had only the ability to get one place at a time. So he said, oh, come by the office tomorrow morning on Friday, and I'll have a new license for you for the Solomon Islands, too. So I stopped by the office on Friday morning, and there it was. I picked up one. He just added H40GJ to my license, so that's good for another year. So we'll see if that materializes. So this was in walking around downtown Honiara, you see these license plates. This is the land of the Happy Isles, is what they call it. And I had a few pizzas at the King Solomon Hotel. They're famous for their outdoor pizza oven here. And my favorite was the Supper Supreme, which you can see up here on the sign, and over here to the right. There's a lot of Pigeon English spoken in the Solomon Islands. And I had dinner and breakfast a few times with some Irish folks, Martin and Norma, who are transplants who are from Ireland, but they live in Sydney when they're not out exploring the world. And I ran into a number of people who are just kind of passing through the Solomon Islands on their way someplace else. And I walked down the street and bought a shirt, too, that was a little bit cooler than the long-sleeve mosquito shirts that I had brought with me. So then I heard from Murphy again here. The Solomon Islands cancels its Sunday morning flight, and reschedules it again for the normal time on Thursday. And apparently what had happened was the airport in Lata, which is on Santa Cruz Island, which is the stop just before it gets to the Lom Lom Island, which is the destination for Pigeon Island. Their runway had been under construction, or it was being resurfaced, so the airport had been closed for months. And it had finally been paved. And it had been just a grass landing strip like all the other landing strips out that way. And now it was paved, but nobody could land there until the Solomon Islands Airport Authority or something went to inspect it to make sure that it was properly done. So They were going to go out on Tuesday, I think. So I tried to get on a flight with them, but no customers were allowed to fly out there. So the earliest they would go would be Thursday. So I was on the first commercial flight, which landed at the new Lata runway. So I had to knock off the first week of operation. Here, this was all just waiting in Honiara now. Very disappointing to lose the nighttime operation. I only had a few hours a day for the first few days where moonrise was going to be at night. But I could still potentially make 11 moon passes. So it was definitely worth being there, and I didn't want to fly back. I mean, I was there, so, the time passed so quickly. I was just focused on trying to get there and make contacts, so the days went by very quickly. Although there was some longing here as I saw the full moon rising out over the ocean from the hotel that night. This is a picture of what it looks like in downtown Honiara. You can see people trying to take a chance to run across the street. There were no stoplights or no street lights. And over the next few days, I just walked around town and took some pictures. The flowers were pretty. I won't show any of the nasty pictures of downtown Honiara. They have a huge Chinese sports stadium that the Chinese built for them on the way to the airport. Well, then Solomon Airlines says that they're not going to be leaving Thursday morning after all, but it'll be in the afternoon. So I'm thinking, rats. That means I probably won't get set up and get over to Pigeon Island in time to do a whole lot on Thursday, leaving most of the setup to happen on Friday, and I don't know if I'll be able to get everything ready for moonrise on Friday night. So I might lose another day, but that still leaves 10 moon passes. So there's the domestic check-in. On that Thursday, I had breakfast at the airport. And there's my plane, the Twin Otter, arrived early afternoon. And there was not a whole lot of extra room for carry-on luggage on the plane. I was fortunate enough to have a vacant seat next to me. There were only 3 seats across. So I put my carry-on amplifier and the laptop in the seat next to me. And our first stop was Kirakira Island on the way to the east. And that's the grass or dirt runway, Kirakira Island, where they had to refuel. And we had to deplane while they rolled out the 55-gallon drums of petrol and hand pumped it into the fuel tanks on the Twin Otter. And that gave us enough fuel to get to the nice new paved landing strip at Lata Airport. This is the Lata Airport terminal, where we also had to deplane while they rolled out 55-gallon drums and fueled up the plane again. And then we were off to the final destination, which was Lom Lom Airstrip. And you can see over here on the left-hand side of the picture, it's another grass landing strip. And Pigeon Island is the 6-acre island here under the circle. And that's approaching the Lom Lom Airstrip. I won't show this whole video, but it's pretty interesting landing and pulling up to the terminal building at the Lom Lom Airstrip. But I've got a picture later on of that. Well, here is how we get from the airstrip to Pigeon Island. And first you have to carry all the luggage wading through a inlet from the ocean here across over to the next island, Lipe Island, and then you take a hired truck from there over to this corner of the island where you can transfer everything to a little boat, and then you take the little boat over to here, and you unload onto Pigeon Island. So I did allow as how this was going to take some time, which was which was why I was worried about the plane leaving in the afternoon. So here's the first step, is you can see carrying my 50-pound suitcases here across the inlet, and then loading them all onto the truck. Ben, the host on Pigeon Island, is here, and he had arranged for some helpers to travel along the way here to help with all of the gear. And then we drove the superhighway over to the wharf where we could get the little outboard boat. This gives you an island, an idea what it looks like along the way. Then we transfer the gear to the boat. And then the boat was expertly navigated around all these different places. It was low tide, so Ben knew how to hug the coast here so that it would be deep enough to for the outboard motor to clear the ground. And then when we get to Pigeon Island, like 20 minutes later, all the gear has to be unloaded by hand. I really wasn't aware about all the wading involved here initially, but I was prepared for all the wading on the way back.
Welcome to Pigeon
unzipped
Island.
the bottoms off my mosquito pants, and I had taken some river shoes, which I used, and they came in quite handy. And that is the spot where I was going to be setting up, right in here. This is shown at low tide. The water is up to around here during high tide, and you just step out here onto the edge of the lagoon and up these little steps and over a bunch of roots, and you get up to the antenna clearing. So starting Thursday afternoon, I went out and tried to figure out where the antenna would go, and that's always the first step. When I go someplace, try to figure out the antenna is 43 feet long and the mast is 24 feet high, and so it takes up a fair amount of space, and you have to figure out how you can set it up and raise it and have enough room to move it around, but still keep the feed line as short as possible, and then make sure you don't run into objects with it. So I did that and started putting together the mast that afternoon, and pretty soon it was dark. I mean, it was dark by 6 p.m., so I couldn't do a whole lot that Thursday. Friday morning, I discovered, oh boy, I forgot to cut out the circle inside my aiming circle for the mast, so that took another hour. Well, I did that and got that ready, and then I put together the mast and took it out to the place where I had decided to set everything up, and I had 16-inch long plastic guy line pegs, and those were great anchors. They just had enough topsoil before the coral base of the island, so they worked out very well. And by noon on Friday, I had the mast up, had it sitting on my prop. The side guys were all staked in. I had tested raising the mast and lowering it back down on the prop. Everything worked fine. And there you can see the aiming circle down here is on the mast. So now it's time to put together the antenna. The building here is a new building that Ben's brother from Australia is having built, and it will be, when he's not there on vacation, it'll be a vacation rental available for hams. So the accommodations look like they're going to be pretty good in the future if anybody dares to try to go to Pigeon Island. And it's just a short distance to the antenna clearing. So the mast was up. I started putting together the antenna parts. There's the balun and the driven element. Got the antenna put together out in the clearing, ready to be put onto the mast. I put it on the mast, and I'm just finishing putting on elements.
This is Saturday, August 15th, Temotu
And
Province.
this was real. I don't know whether this was Saturday morning the 15th or the 16th. I said on the recording that it was the 15th, but I didn't know what day it was. I was so confusing knowing whether it was GMT or local or what it was. But I knew I was there and it was time to put up the antenna. So this is the way I do it wherever I go. I take along this this tall falling derrick, which breaks down into the antenna bag, and I use it to get the extra leverage to raise the antenna up off the prop. And Ben came over to make sure that in case I needed some help. And I really didn't need any help with the taller falling derrick that I've been using now. But you can see it just goes right up. I ran out of a little bit of space to go backwards because of the bush back there, but it was successful. And there's the antenna up with the tie-down lines on the front and the back. You know, the power line back here, and there's still a few obstacles around that we had to be careful about not hitting. The power line from the generator over to the station was, I only had about a foot clearance, so that was something I was watching pretty carefully. And the bushes here were pretty close, but it worked fine. So I aligned the antenna on the sun to be pointing due north. And the feed line, I got 75 feet of feed line, which just reached the amplifier. You can see it here sneaking through the window to the watt meter coupler. And that's the inside, that's the shack. and that was a little analysis that I did of the antenna to make sure it was all okay, and it looked good. So there I am smiling, and the first moonrise was amazing gain out over the lagoon. It was at night, which was perfect. It was far enough north so that I had great ground gain all over salt water, and I worked 54 stations that first moon pass, which I was very pleased with. And this just shows what it looks like when I'm operating. Everything is digital. It's all Q65-60A. That's the most sensitive digital mode. Prior to 2002, all the 6-meter moon bounce was, I say all the 6-meter, the very few 6-meter moon bounce contacts that were made on CW by huge stations with big amplifiers. And with the advent of the digital modes, which gave us another 10 dB of sensitivity, all of a sudden going on a DXpedition was a possibility, which never had been possible before. So it was very exciting. And you can see here in this picture, I'm receiving K0DAS, who's out operating portable with a 9-element Yagi out in a cornfield in Iowa. And I received him for hours, and he never heard a peep out of me. And he wound up taking the antenna down, taking it apart, checking everything, trying new preamplifiers, checking the coax. You know, we had some very, very strange one-way conditions because, like I said, during the daytime, there was a lot of ionospheric stuff going on up above me. And it just, normally that just causes the signals to rotate in polarization as they go out through the ionosphere. But this was very strange because it caused one-way propagation. And what I do is I watch with my GJ tracker here in real-time mode in the background to see who is about to lose the moon, so I can focus on the people that are losing the moon first. One of the exciting moments was working South Africa. They were worried that I would be totally blocked on my moon set because I had a little barn and a water tank, which is used to collect all the rainwater for the island, due west of where I put the antenna. But the antenna was up on a 24-foot mast, and I told Bernie, I said, you know, I think that this particular day will be fine because as the moon just hits the ocean, it clears the water tank and the little barn. And so let's try it. And so we got on the air, and I worked him at minus 1.5 degrees. And there was something else that's due to the curvature of the Earth, because I was beaming out over the open ocean once it cleared the water tank. But during that same period, I was having HB9Q call me from Switzerland, and he transmits circular polarization because he has 4 cross-polarized Jaggies, and he always receives on an electronic, they call it adaptive polarization, where electronically the electronic switches between the 2 antennas, and it gives him the proper, it sweeps through the different polarization from 0 to 360. I think it's every 17.5 degrees or something like that, so that he should be able to copy me, whatever the polarization is, that how my horizontal polarization gets modified by the ionosphere. However, he never copied me at all, and I copied him for a very long period of time. So that was just another small revelation that we had on what the strange effects are from the ionosphere during the daytime in the TEP zone. It's something that I had never encountered before, and I don't think anybody has a good explanation for why that's happening or how to predict it or prevent it. But it was a success working Bernie anyway. And this is kind of this. I took this picture after I got home, but it shows the same deal. You have this high ionization area move in during the daytime, and the yellow asterisk here was where I was located. And during the daytime, that's what I had to contend with. I mean, it was very unpredictable conditions during the daytime. And there were high winds during a couple of those days too, which I knew that there would be breezes, but
you can see
I hadn't counted on really high winds.
Down with a halyard to a tree out that way.
And I tried to tie down the antenna every which way here.
And I've got the front
even using the halyard that raises the antenna,
tied,
which is up higher on the mast, and I had that tied down, and I had the steering lines tied off to the trees also to try to keep the antenna pointed in the right direction and keep the mast from blowing over.
Blowing sideways in this wind.
Here you can see over here the water tank and the little barn to my west that blocked me somewhat on moonset. Well, then I lost transmitter output during the 8th moon pass just before my moonset. So I lost those last 2 moon passes and the chance to work FT8 on terrestrial modes during those days, so I could pack at a more leisurely pace than I had planned. I think what had happened, the transmitter is fine, the amplifier is fine. I just tested it yesterday. I had 1,500 watts output here in the shack. I think what happened was, normally I set up my laptop so it will not update while I'm on the DXpedition. But I didn't do it on this DXpedition because I never figured I'd be connected to the internet during the DXpedition. However, as it turned out, I took a Wi-Fi extender and we were able to position it up underneath the construction of Ben's brother's house up there, and that was close enough to me that I could barely get real-time internet connection in the shack. So I was exposed to, I think, an update which came and screwed up my audio settings, and I didn't realize it at the time that it was the laptop that was the problem. It wasn't my exciter or the amplifier, because I had no way of measuring 2 watts output with my 2,500 watt slug for the watt meter. But now I'm taking a 100 watt slug too, so I can see it move up 1 click just by the exciter, so I can check that now. So anyway, I was packing up the antenna, and this just shows how it all fits in the little nylon carrying bag. Here's the mast. all the pieces telescoped together with the falling derrick and the prop and a few of the elements. And then I put on all of the Yagi boom and the Yagi parts, the spreader for the boom guys, and the rest of the elements. And it all goes into the nylon bag with some cushioning here on the end, and then a solid high-density polyethylene plate in the end of the bag to try to protect it, because these bags get thrown around so much by the luggage handlers. So we're off to the Lom Lom airstrip. We think we know when the plane is going to arrive, so we depart in the morning. And then we, backwards from the way we came, we transfer everything to a truck on the other island. You can see a number of the people over there have orange hair, which I thought was kind of interesting. It must be something when the English colonized it or something, but there's some genes in there somewhere along the line for the red hair. So we're all loaded now into the truck, and that's as far as the truck can go. The airstrip is out here, and so we're carrying the all the 50-pound bags out through the water, and we're wading our way to the airstrip.
Oh,
This is the first DXpedition where I've had to wade through water to get to the airstrip. It was quite an adventure. So here we are checking in at the Lom Lom ticket counter. They wanted to see what kind of special arrangements I had for all this excess baggage and all the heavy stuff. And I had received a email from the Singapore Airlines that morning showing me a receipt that I had already paid. And so when he asked for my documentation, I opened up my laptop and turned it on so he could see it. And everything was fine after that. There was no electricity or cell phone service or anything there at the ticket counter. So they just tagged my bags as going back to the main capital city. And we waited here at the terminal for 4 hours waiting for the flight. At one point, one of the guys that's working here went off somewhere where he had cell phone service or something, and after a half hour or so he came back and said that the plane was on its way, so we were all set. So we just hung out some more, bought some coconuts from the friends there, all hanging out around the airport. It's a market day on Thursdays when the weekly flight comes and leaves into Lom Lom airstrip, so all the locals come from the local villages and just hang out. They bring their goods from home and sell them, and we bought a few coconuts to drink while we were waiting. Some people play cards and gamble there under a little thatched roof that they made for the gambling. And these are the Ganaivo people, and they speak the Aiwu language. But there were a few people who spoke good English there. And one of them was a woman named Dorothy, who used to be a school teacher. And she had an iPhone. It wasn't connected to anything, but she had saved this song on her iPhone. And she liked country music, so she was playing Meet Me in Montana on her iPhone in her carry-on basket there. And I thought that was really, really appropriate since I was headed to Montana. So farewell to the Reef Islands and Pigeon Island as we circled around and headed back to the Solomon Islands, flying off into the sunset. So in summary, I made 150 6-meter EME contacts and 1 terrestrial contact, which was 3D2AG in Fiji. He was only around 1,100 miles east of me, and he was trying to work me on EME, and I said, you know, Tony, I just don't think we're going to make it. You know, I don't think I've worked him on EME from here at home, or maybe I have, but it was not easy. And so I said, we'll just work direct. And he didn't believe me. And I just said, you know, any time during the daytime with this powerful Q65 mode, we can work direct on D-layer scatter. And he was willing to try, but very, very unbelieving. So I told him, okay, be there at 12:30. And during the middle of the day, I'll just move the antenna from the moon, and it's too high for me at that time anyway to point the antenna any higher, and I'll just aim it at you and we'll work. And so we made a contact immediately, and then he called me again just to make sure that it wasn't a fluke. And you know, so we had 2 contacts, and then I put the antenna back up to the moon again. So that was really an interesting experience for Tony, because he doesn't have anybody who's within 1,500 miles of him where he lives in Fiji. This was totally new experience for him. So that was kind of fun. So where next? I don't know. I'm getting a lot of suggestions that I should go back to the Solomon Islands and activate those. Since I've got a license, which is not an easy thing to get. So that may be a possibility. And when I got home, my 12-year-old granddaughter, had sent me a birthday card. And it shows these palm trees and an antenna up there. I thought that was great. So, does anybody have any questions? Maybe I'm not still connected.
No, you're still here. You can stop sharing if you want.
Okay, let me see if I can figure out how to do that.
There you go.
Okay.
Well, Lance, that was great. It was really enjoyable, and once again, explaining your pain and the frustrations, I think, are very important. There's a whole lot more than just the QSOs to go into all of this, and you know, hearing what you went through and how you adapted to those situations, eating more pizza than you probably wanted to, but that was good. So, do we have any questions for Lance?
Well, I understand it's a pretty unique and specialized thing, and I really appreciate the opportunity to present the show here to you guys. I know there's at least N0TB on here who had a great signal on 6-meter EME. You know, one thing that I should mention is that, you know, in the past, 6-meter EME was just something that was not possible until these weak signal modes got invented and for digital. I was thrilled to work New Zealand, several VK stations, two ZS stations, people from all over North America and Europe, a bunch of single Yagi stations. I worked some 6-element Yagi stations. So, I mean, it's possible with a single Yagi. I mean, I worked 150 guys, and they're not 150 guys with four Yagis. I mean, a lot of the people were horizon only with just small Yagis, and it's just possible. The only thing for sure about 6-meter EME is that if you don't try, you won't make a contact. So often, it's the only way many of us who live in northern latitudes can work the other side of the world. And it's pretty exciting when the signals come back 2.5 seconds later.
I'd remind everyone that I think we have several different YouTube videos on EME antennas and, you know, Lance's other programs. So there's a lot of information on our website about 6-meter DXing. So I would encourage everyone to take a look at that. So if there's no more questions, I will.
Question,
Oh, okay.
what was the dates of this adventure?
Well, I started on August 3rd, and I got back on August 30th. So it was basically the month of August. But there were only 2 weeks on Pigeon Island. I think the last week was it was August 14th through the 28th. Those were the Thursday weekly flights. And so that was the 2 weeks I was there, and then it took a few days to get home. The reason that I picked August, there were 2 reasons. One, it was the driest month of the year and the coldest month of the year there. So it was in the 80s during the daytime and low 80s at nighttime. So it was bearable, but it wasn't oppressive. And as it turned out, the bugs were not nearly as bad as they had been for the HF DXpedition, which was in the spring during the rainy season. So that is definitely the time to go there if you don't want to be bitten by horrible mosquitoes. So if I do decide to go back to the Solomon Islands next year, I'm going to definitely try to go during August. And the other factor is it's between the E-skip season and the F2 season. So when I try to go out on a EME DXpedition, where I'm going to be there for hours and hours and hours trying to work on the moon, I want to try to minimize the ionospheric interference that can happen to the moon-bound signals. But also, I'm worried about all of the ionospheric QRM that I could get from people who are going to be calling me from nearby places when I'm trying to work the other side of the world. You know, North Americans, this was an all-time new one for them. I didn't want to have 4,000 JAs calling me when I'm trying to give out all-time new ones to the patient people in North America or in Europe. So if you want to work JAs, most of whom have already worked it on previous times, then it's easy to work them on TEP if you're there during the spring or the fall. But if you want to do that, you have to be willing to sleep under mosquito nets and fight the bugs too.
Thank you
Did
for
I-
that response. Good presentation. And
Thank you.
I can't help but notice how bundled up you are.
Well, it's cold here in the basement in Montana. I did fire up the wood stove in the propane stove that we use for heating the house, though. I fired that up on Monday night. It just kept getting below zero at night, so it was necessary to fire up the stove. But it doesn't heat down here in the basement. However, I did close the basement window finally. So it's a little warmer down here now.
Well, great. As the show said, winter is coming. It hasn't come for us yet, but it's already starting to cool down a little bit. We've been very, very warm. Regardless, again, another great program. I personally really enjoyed it. I know our members did. We'll have this up on our YouTube channel. I'll let you know when it's live. And with that, I wish everyone a good night and good DXing. Thanks
Thank
a
you
lot.
very much.